with the next Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC, the Indigo Disc DLC number 2 being released in about a month from when I'm recording this video. I'm kind of throwing this video up for you guys. We are going to be getting a bunch of returning Pokemon to the game, and let's just kind of quickly discuss 5 underrated Pokemon that are going to be returning with the Indigo Disc that nobody's really talking about, that I think are going to be really good in the next regulation of VGC, which is probably Regulation F, which will kind of be the same thing with like the inclusion with all the DLC mons, at least the returning mons for the next DLC. So before I get into this as well, let me know your guys' most like hyped mon you guys are excited for coming back with the next DLC for the Indigo Disc in the comments down below. Or what do you guys think is going to be really good that nobody's really talking about either? So I'm going to kind of talk about 5 mons in this video that nobody's really talking about, but I think are going to be really good in VGC, and also kind of singles. I can kind of talk about singles a little bit as well, but mainly going to be kind of for VGC in this video. Keep in mind as well, like, at this current point, at least when I'm recording this, we do not know if, like, any Pokemon are going to be getting, like, any ability changes or, like, stat buffs or moveset changes. There's also a slew of an entire bunch of new move tutors and brand new moves that are going to be coming to the game with the DLC dropping in about a month and that type of thing. And there might be also a bunch of other stuff. There's supposed to be a few new items being introduced to the game that were leaked as well, and that type of thing. And also a bunch of other new Pokemon that are going to be coming into the game. So this is kind of keeping in mind, like, kind of going based off of what we already had in the past. We do not know, like, any of the updated info, like the movesets or anything, or, like, even stats for a lot of the mons I'm going to be talking about here today. Or even, like, a lot of the mons that are going to be returning for the DLC. Or, like, their movesets or anything. All that could be subjected to change. So we're kind of going off base of what they really had in the past, and kind of what they're currently doing with a lot of the mons based off of DLC number 1. So, the first mon I actually kind of want to talk about is Galvantula. Galvantula is one of my favorite Gen 5 mons, and it's going to be coming back with the Indigo Disc. This thing's actually really good. I don't think it's going to be like crazy good because its stats are kind of lacking. I think it's kind of got a little bit power crept, but the few unique things this actually brings to the game is actually it's a really fast bug electric type, which I don't think we really have right now. I think the only other bug electric type that's actually in the game is at least decent is Vikavolt, and even then you don't really see it that much apart from like Trick Room. It has decent stats. 108 speed is pretty good. I think the only drawback to that is you're getting outsped by like a Alolan Ninetales and like Ogerpon and a few other faster things. But also with the addition of Terra, you can kind of negate that. The main thing with this thing that makes this thing unique is it's a fast user that actually gets both Sticky Web, which I think is right down here, Sticky Web, which is really cool. And granted, Sticky Web's not really the most common in VGC. It's more common in singles, which I think Galvantula is going to have a really solid niche in singles again. It's always really solid in singles with Sticky Web, being a really fast Sticky Web and offensive Sticky Web user. But like for VGC, it's one of the only mons that actually gets Sticky Web plus Electro Web, and it's actually a really solid mon that actually gets both of those. And it's also decently fast. Where's Electro Web at? It's down here somewhere. It's way down here because nobody uses it. Mainly, I'm in National Dex OU because these mons aren't technically in the game yet. So, you guys gotta kind of bear with me. I'm kind of going based off National Dex OU stuff here, and that's why there's no Terra here or anything. Because otherwise, I wouldn't be able to look at anything. They're technically illegal in the game still. We don't really know their movesets. Technically, apart from like all the stuff that they had in the past, but it gets Electro Web. It's a decently fast mon with base 108 that it gets Electro Web plus a Sticky Web, which I think is actually pretty good. And it also gets Speed Swap. Now, I don't know if that's actually going to be, if this move's actually going to be coming back into the game with the DLC being dropped, or if it's even in the game right now. I think it's in the game, but I think it's only on like a certain few mons that aren't really that good. Pretty much what it does is swaps your speed stat with a target. So you can bring something on your team that's pretty damn slow, and you have a really fast speed swap of a base 108, and you can swap that to something like an Ursaluna or like an Iron Hands or something that's a little bit slower. Even like an Urshifu would be great with like a 108 speed stat. And you can speed swap and give them a higher speed stat, and that actually make them really, really solid. I think that would be really cool as well with the Galvantula. Like I said, I don't know if speed swap's even in the game, how common it actually is. I haven't really seen it being used at all, and whether this move is even going to be coming back on Galvantula, but I think that's just kind of something to keep in mind as well. And kind of just looking through its moves, like, at least what it previously got in here, like, Hidden Power isn't in the game anymore either, but like, it gets decent bulk stab, it gets Thunderbolt, it gets a fast Thunder Wave. Volt Switch is really good, it's a fast Volt Switch user. I think Galvantula is going to have a really solid niche in this next DLC. Regulation F, probably. So, a few other things here. Gets Charge Beam, which ain't too bad. I know there's a few other things. I mean, with Terra as well, you can kind of take that in consideration. I think also another thing that it might also get is Rising Voltage, which a lot of people aren't really talking about. A base 108 with Rising Voltage ain't too bad. And considering Tapu Koko probably won't be coming back, at least as far as we know right now, Rising Voltage could be good. Granted, I don't know if it'll actually have Rising Voltage, because a lot of the previous mons that are also were in DLC number 1 with the Teal Mask, a lot of those mons, apart from a Alolan Raichu, got Rising Voltage taken away from them. So for some reason, they're taking away this move from a lot of the mons that it was actually really good on. So I don't know if it's actually going to return on this. We're kind of just speculating at this point. But if it does, I think Rising Voltage paired alongside like an Electric Terrain user, even like a Prankster Electric Terrain user like Thundurus or Tornadus or something that gets like a Prankster Electric Terrain could be pretty good. Even like Pincursion wouldn't be too bad, I guess. But I don't know. Kind of more of a niche mon, but I think it'll have a really solid place. And it also has Compound Eyes, which is pretty good. So you can kind of just run Thunder and get a bunch more base power off an electric move, which is pretty good as well. And then Unnerve, which is pretty common, where there's a lot of berries, a lot of citrus berries and stuff. Lumberry is pretty common in VGC, so it has decent abilities too. The next one I want to talk about is Meowstic now. Mainly Meowstic male. I don't think Meowstic female is going to be very viable, because it kind of just gets outclassed by a lot of other stuff. The only thing the female Meowstic actually has is competitive that can make it a little bit viable, and it's a little bit faster, I think. You can actually look here. I don't know. It doesn't pop up, but I think it's tiny. I think it's actually base 106 or 109 speed or something. It might be about the same. I'm not even sure, but whatever. The female one isn't really as good, but the main one I want to talk about is the male one, and that's mainly because of Prankster. Now, this thing actually gets Prankster Yawn, which I think is really good. I think that's the one thing that's kind of going to set this thing really apart from a lot of the other Prankster users. It's also pretty fast. Like 104 is pretty fast for a Prankster user. I think it's once this does get put into the game, it's going to be probably one of the fastest Prankster users in the game, apart from like Whimsicott and Tornadus, which I think is really cool. It also gets Prankster Yawn, and it also gets double screens. It gets Fake Out, which ain't too bad. Heal Bell, I don't know if that's going to come back, but that would be also pretty good. It gets double screens, light screen, reflect, ain't too bad. Prankster Thunder Wave is also pretty good, which will probably come back. Prankster Trick is also pretty good. Toxic, if it happens to get toxic. Ally Switch ain't bad. Prankster Assist, which is actually, I don't know if that'll actually come back or not. I'm not even sure if that's in the current game. But Assist is actually boosted by Prankster as well. So I don't know if that's actually going to be coming back, though, which I highly doubt, because I don't think it's actually in the current game, at least that I know of. Also, if it gets Fake Tears. If it gets Fake Tears, like a +2 Fake Tears, actually be pretty good, because the only other Prankster mon in the game right now that actually gets priority Prankster Fake Tears is Illamuse, and Illamuse is a way worse mon than Meowstic actually is, at least stats-wise. So that could also give this mon a little bit more of a niche with Prankster Fake Tears, which could be kind of cool. It gets Gravity, which is pretty cool. Helping Hand, not too bad. Imprison, Prankster Leer, ain't too bad. If they all, like, this is all taken into consideration if a lot of this stuff actually returns as well. They can be like really stupid, and they can also actually like pretty much gut Meowstic's moveset. I don't know why they would, but because it's not really that crazy good mon to begin with. But there were a lot of mons that returned in the last DLC and even like in the base game that had a lot better movesets, and they were lost of like a lot of really good moves that made them really good. So you never know what Game Freak's going to do. This is just going based off of what they had in the past, and just assuming it comes back the way it is, or at least mostly the way it is. So at least moveset wise. Skill Swap, it also gets Skill Swap, which is pretty good. I don't know, Telekinesis, it also gets Trick Room, which ain't too bad. Prankster Tickle, ain't too bad. Snatch, I don't know if you're really going to be running Snatch, though, but it gets a lot of really good support options. Prankster Sub is also pretty good. Kind of cool. Gets a lot of really cool stuff. It's a really cool mon that gets a lot of cool stuff. It also actually gets Expanding Force, which I don't know if that's going to be coming back, but I guess, I mean, looking at these stats, they aren't really the greatest stats. I think there's a lot better Expanding Force users, but it's there. I guess if it does come back, you can use it as Expanding Force user. But overall, I think it's going to be a really good support mon, especially with Terra. You can like Terra this thing into like a Terra Dark, so you can't get taunted, or like even like a defensive Terra wouldn't be too bad. It has decent stats. Like its stats aren't crazy good, but it has enough in both of if its defenses and its HP to at least live like some hits. So that's kind of the main thing. Next one I kind of want to talk about is Excadrill. I don't see anybody talking about Excadrill. I really don't. Excadrill is one of those mons that every time it's in the game, it makes the weather of sand just so much better, and it's like pretty much a game changer for that type of weather. And I don't see anybody actually talking about this mon at all with how good this thing actually is going to be. Now that's assuming if it gets all its moves back and if it has all the same stuff that it usually has, that it had in the past. They could got this thing's moveset or like change a bunch of moves or something, but with these stats, it has a really solid stats. Base 110 HP is really good. 135 attack is crazy. And then 88 speed, even if you don't run like max speed in like Sand Rush, under Sand, you're getting a double speed boost. This is the fastest Sand Rush user the game will have once the DLC drops. And I think pairing this thing alongside like a Tyranitar, even like a Hippowdon, which I think Tyranitar is going to be the most common Sand setter. Hippowdon's kind of just there, but like alongside a Tyranitar, this thing can be really good. It gets the Earthquake, like even like a Terra Flying Tyranitar would be really good. Pair like an Excadrill beside like a Terra Flying Tyranitar and go for EQ. I think that would be really cool to see if how that works. You're also a Steel typing, so you're also able to check Flutter Mane as well, which is pretty good. And I think Ironhead, if you're like max attack Ironhead, I think Ironhead probably one-shots the majority of the Flutter Mane builds, just based off of like how much attack you actually have. Because 135 is still a really, really good amount of attack. And understand you're pretty much, I think, guaranteed to outspeed Flutter Mane. I'm not 100% sure on that calc, because you'd have to look if you outspeed a speed booster Flutter Mane without having to run max speed, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But without a speed boost, I'm pretty sure understand you're guaranteed to outspeed like every single Flutter Mane build, apart from a booster energy speed boost one, probably. And probably one shot it most of the time. It also has two other really good abilities. Sand Force is also really good if you don't want to run like Sand Rush. And then Mold Breaker is also a really good ability. It always has three really good abilities. They're all really viable. Kind of just depends on what you really want to run. I think Sand's going to be the one that's probably the best. Gets Iron Head, like a lot of other stuff. Gets Robert Span, I guess, for singles, ain't too bad. What else does it really get? Stealth Rock ain't too bad for singles, I guess. I guess they ain't too bad for VGC either. Rock Slide, Rock Blast with maybe like loaded dice sets would be pretty damn cool. A lot of really cool stuff. It gets a lot of really cool stuff. Its move pool isn't like crazy diverse, like a lot of the other mons in the game, or at least some of the ones that we talked about in this list so far. It also gets Stomping Tantrum, which is a no-brainer. You're kind of going to want that if you want a single target ground move. But apart from that, it gets what it really wants. It gets the Steel Stab, it gets the Ground Stab, and plus, if you really want to Terra, you can Terra into like a Rock type or even like something else, and you also got the Terra Blast, which at worst comes to worst, that's still there to use, I guess. But it also gets High Horsepower, which ain't too bad. Just a higher base power move. It also gets Brick Break, pretty good for like screens, not too bad. Facade ain't too bad. Maybe like a Terra Normal Facade build wouldn't be too bad. I don't know. Really cool mon, though. I think the Excadrill is going to be really good. And personally, at least for me, I think Excadrill and like the next mon we're going to be talking about is going to be like two mons that I really want to build a team around, because I think they're going to be really, really good. Just like from the stats from this thing too, like it has really solid stats. I don't know why nobody's talking about Excadrill. I think it's going to be really underrated. It's going to bring Sand back to prominence. Right now, I think Sand, at least in the current game when I'm recording this, I think Sand is probably the worst weather in the game, at least for VGC, Regulation E. And I think with Excadrill being brought back, we're going to finally see a really solid rise in Sand usage, like Tyranitar and that type of thing, or even like Manual Sand. So that'll be really cool to see. Next mon I want to talk about real quick is actually Scrafty. Now this mon is actually another one of my favorite Gen 5 mons. I have a lot of favorite Gen 5 mods. Gen 5, if you guys don't realize, Gen 5 is my favorite gen. That's when I started really getting into the game. That's why I love a lot of the Gen 5 mods. They just bring me back. They're some of my favorites. Scrafty I think is going to be really good, especially with Terra. I think the main thing that makes Scrafty incredibly good is actually going to be Terra, because the Dark Fighting typing is 4 times weak to Fairy, and it's weak to a lot of other stuff like Fighting and that type of thing. But like with a Terra type, you can pretty much negate that 4 times weakness to something like a Flutter Mane or like some of the other common fairy types, and you can defensive Terra, which gives the thing a huge bunch of viability. Now I don't think Scraps is going to be like a crazy mon because there's a lot of stuff in the game that can still kind of shut it down. But the main thing this thing has is it has, I guess, 2 viable abilities. Moxie, it's decent in singles, but in VGC it's kind of more situational. But the main thing is it has Intimidate. I think Scrafty as an Intimidator with how much bulk this thing has could be really good. Now it's obviously probably going to be competing with like other Intimidators like Isui and Arcanine and probably Incineroar, which is going to also be another really solid mon that's going to be coming back, which I'm not going to talk about here, but that's also coming back with the DLC. So it's going to have a bunch of competition from other Intimidate mons, but it also has that, which makes it pretty good. And it also has Shed Skin, so you can actually run this thing with like Sleep Powder or like Rest with like Shed Skin or something. And I think Spore is going to be really common because Smeargle is also going to be coming back, and Smeargle loves to run Spore. And just having like a Shed Skin on a mon, like that makes you pretty much have a chance to pretty much wake up turn 1. If you get a Shed Skin proc on like turn 1 or turn 2, could be really, really good with a lot of Spore users running around. I think a Moonkiss is probably going to come back as well, and with higher usage going forward. Like looking at his move pool too, like it has a really solid move pool. Bulk Up's really good. It has really good Dark and Fighting Stab. It gets Dragon Dance, which I think could be really, really cool. Drain Punch is really good. It also gets Fake Out for priority and support, which is pretty good. It has a really solid move pool. Like assuming a lot of this stuff comes back, Knockoff's really good. Lash Out could be really, really good. I don't know. It just comes down like it has Poison Jab. If you want to tear a Poison defensively, you can get a Stab Poison Jab off on something and get a kill. Rock Slide ain't too bad. Super Fang, Taunt, Throat Chop. A lot of cool stuff. It gets a lot of cool, really cool, good moves. Assuming all this stuff comes back, at least. That's just assuming going off based off that. It also has Rest, Sleep Talk with Shed Skin, could be pretty good. Granted, that's not really the most common because it takes up like 2 of your move slots most of the time if you want to run both. Or you're kind of just relying on Shed Skin to proc, and that's more luck based. But it's there if you want to use that. It also gets a bunch of other stuff. Assurance ain't too bad. I can see this thing actually working in Trick Room too because it's really slow. I think Scrafty under Trick Room could be pretty damn good. And like with these stats, you have really bulky stats. Like 115 defense and SpDef is actually really, really good. Especially if you like fully invest this into HP and like split the rest of your EVs between both the defensive stats or even like offensively and throw it into like attack or something. It could be really, really good. See what other moves this thing gets way down here, like the more or less common moves. I guess Quick Guard. I mean, a lot of the stuff down here really isn't that common. I guess Manual Stun. I don't know why you'd run Stun on this thing though, but a lot of other random stuff. Chip Away, I don't think that's even in the game. I guess it gets beat up. If that comes back, it gets beat up, I guess. A slow beat up user for some reason. I don't think that'd be any good, but overall I think it's going to be a really solid mon, especially with Terra. I think the thing that's going to make this thing a lot better than it previously was. Because Scrafty was also always used to be like decent in VGC, but like it was nothing crazy. And that was just mainly because it was always had a really bad 4 times weakness to fairy types, which kind of really held it back. And a lot of the fairies were also really common, like every single format in the past it's been in. So apart from I guess like the early gens when fairy types didn't exist, but like everything after that I'm kind of inferring to. So and after that we actually got the last one I'm going to talk about, and this is actually Porygon 2. I think Porygon 2, now, we don't actually know that if this is actually going to be in the DLC, but Porygon and Porygon Z are both confirmed for the DLC, so it kind of by default, I think you're going to be having Porygon 2, like by default, like because if Porygon's in the game, like automatically you're going to be getting Porygon 2, just based off of that, so I don't know why it wouldn't be in the DLC, but I don't think it's 100% confirmed if this thing is in the DLC, at least as of now. But we're just going based off of that Porygon's going to be in the game. So that's kind of why this thing should also be in the game. I don't see why it wouldn't. So the main thing that makes this thing good is, and I don't see anybody talking about this, is Eviolite, which is great on this thing. Eviolite's really, really solid. It makes this thing so bulky, especially with these stats. 90 and 95 plus an Eviolite makes you pretty much unkillable, especially if you invest in into HP. And then you also have really, really solid abilities. Analytics, pretty good if you want to run this thing as like a fully offensive mon, and like Trick Room could be really good. But the main stuff is going to be like Download or even like Trace. There's a lot of really cool trace abilities too, like the main one being is you can actually trace and intimidate the enemy team with a trace, which I think is really good. There's a few other trace abilities too that could be really solid. I don't know if it actually traces photosynthesis, so if like there's sun and the enemy has like a photosynthesis mon, you trace that. If you also get a boost, I'm not sure if that actually works, but that could also be another cool thing that trace actually works for. But the main thing is download. If you can get a +1 special attack boost, that'd also be really, really solid. And this thing also gets a really solid moveset. Porygon's always been a really solid mon. I think the only things that are going to be really holding this thing back is like there's a lot of really solid competition for Trick Room users. This thing's also weak to Urshifu, which makes it have to defensively Terra, which I think is the one main drawback to this thing. But I still think as like a really bulky Trick Room user, I think it's going to be really, really good. The only thing that it's really competing with is like Dusclops and Cresselia, which Cresselia has Lunar Blessing, which makes it a lot better. And then Dusclops as well also has the Ghost typing, so you're immune to Fake Out and a bunch of other stuff. And it's way slower, so it's able to utilize the Trick Room and has Pain Split and a bunch of other stuff. But the thing, assuming all these moves return, like you have a lot of really solid coverage. Ice Beam's really good. Curse, Magical, Pain Split, Recover, which is the main thing for recovery. It's more like of a self-recovery move, and it's not really a team-oriented move like Lunar Blessing is. But you still have Recovery, which is huge, and a lot of mons don't even get, so that's always a really good step up. You have Tri-Attack, which is going to be like your main move with a 20% chance to para, burn, or freeze, which I think is going to be really, really good. I don't know if Teleport's going to be coming back. I don't think Teleport will be in the game, but it's worth mentioning. I don't think that's going to be coming back on Porygon, though. If it does, that'll make Porygon crazy good, because you can actually set up a Trick Room and then teleport out, which I think is going to be huge. I don't think that's going to be coming back, though. Gets Trick Room, like we talked about, Trick, which I don't think you're going to be running Trick, because you'll be tricking away your Eviolite, unfortunately. Ally Switch, Electro Web. Gets a few other things, like a Gravity, Guard Swap, I guess, if a lot of this comes back. Icy Wind for speed control, if you just want it for speed control without Trick Room. There's a few other things, Psych Up, Speed Swap. I don't know if you really want to use that, though. I guess if you want to use something under, like, Trick Room, I guess if you want to, like, swap your speed for, like, something that's really fast and, like, make it a lot better in Trick Room or something, but I don't think there's really much reason I should run that on this mon, but overall, I think it's still going to be really good. Like, run, like, a Recover, Tri-Attack, Trick Room, and then, like, Protect set or something, or, like, with double moves like Ice Beam or something on that set. There's a few other options you can run. It gets Foul Play, which is pretty good. If that does return, we'll see how if it does, but it's a really solid mon. I think with Terra as well, you're able to play around your typings and defensively go into a different typing. I think Ghost would be really good on this thing. It's pretty much like, that's like a lot of the normal types, like Snorlax and a lot of other stuff, like to go into Ghost Terra, just to avoid a lot of the fighting moves, but I think Ghost could be pretty good on this thing, like as a Terra type. There's a few other ones too that could probably be pretty good. We're kind of just looking at this like into the game, so I'm not 100% sure what's going to be happening. And the entire meta is going to be pretty much shaken up again as well, so we don't know what the most common stuff is going to be, and we're kind of just going based off of like the top usages of some of the mons we currently have, that type of thing. So that's kind of all I really want to talk about today. Just 5 really underrated mons that nobody's really talking about that are going to probably be really good when this next DLC drops for Regulation F or whatever the regulation is going to be. So, like I said, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And let me know what you guys think. At least what mod do you guys think is going to be really, really good and you guys are looking forward to using when this next DLC drops here in about a month, at least when I'm recording this. In the comments down below, would love to know. At least for me, I'm really looking forward to using like Excadrill, Scrafty, Primarina, Superior, one of my favorite starter mod. Can't wait to use him, or at least use Superior, and there's a few other ones too that I really want to use. Malamar is also coming back, which I wouldn't be opposed to using. So, a few other ones. There's a lot of really cool mons that are going to be returning, and there's also a bunch of new ones as well. There's a new Duraludon, I think Evo or something, and then Roaring Bolt. I think Raging Bolt or Roaring Bolt is going to be coming into the game. There's going to be a few other stuff in the game. I don't know if those will be legal, but there's going to be some new Pokemon coming to the game that we don't even know about yet. So, if you guys enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, share the video. I also stream over here on YouTube twice a week, and I also stream on Twitch, usually every Sunday night. So if you guys want to go follow me over there, feel free to. Apart from that, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you guys in future videos.